But other than that, I think it all goes through running the ball. And so, these guys, they've had some success in the running game when you look at the numbers of what they were able to do. We're definitely running a little differently. Some of the plays are exactly the same. There's plenty of new ones. But once you get the run game going, then everything changes because defenses have to change. Once they change, your explosiveness changes. But this whole offense is about we're going to run the ball, and then everything comes off of it. Like I talked about Green Bay earlier, and what I saw happen as soon as Aaron Jones came back last year, it was a totally different offense when he was out there, and we got the run game going because it helped Jordan, it helped our young receivers, the young tight ends, and it really things took off.
What's kind of the percentage breakdown, maybe when you're running zone versus maybe power or gap?
It's a good question. I would definitely say overall run pass, I'm very simple 50-50. You try to be 50-50.
Sure.
I mean, there's games I've called 70 runs in a game. I've called 70 passes in a game. So it depends on who you're playing, right?
Right.
But I would say probably more zone than gap. I'd probably like 60-40, maybe 65-35. I don't really know, because we're definitely, I would say more zone because it sets up play pass better. It sets up the boot better. So I'd say a little. You definitely lead towards zone, but there's still gap in there, depending on what they're doing on defense. So, but run to pass, you'd like to be 50-50. But if you have a feel for the game, that's one of the reasons I like to be in the booth.
Yeah.
Once you feel what's working, you got to lean on it. You can't wait till the next game to try to start with, to call what's working. So I think the goal is always 50-50 run pass. In this offense, we're definitely more zone than gap.
Over the last 4 or 5 years, even here, there's been a major jump in difference when there's, say, jet sweep motion versus non-jet sweep as far as yards per carry. Maybe 5 versus 3.2. What does that do as far as like adjusting to second level, the third level of the defense when you've got that much motion?
It does everything, right? I mean, defense is about eye control, and if they have great eye control, then they're probably going to stop most runs. They're gapped out. They're great coaches, especially here, and so they're going to fill the gaps. The question is, if you change their gaps 2 or 3 times before the snap, then you're really trying to get them to misfit, and train their eyes and be able to hand the jet sweep, be able to throw it on the perimeter, be able to run the ball. And if the guy doesn't get the perfect key, then you end up opening up some big runs, So that's the keys. When they can pin their ears back and they're solo gap football, and I'm a linebacker and I got the B gap and you run the ball and I blow the B gap, you're in trouble. But if we make sure that guy thinks he has the backside A gap, and then with the motion he has the front side B gap, and then we bring a tight end backwards, now he's back to the backside A gap. 2, 3, 4 times before the snap, it definitely ups your chances, right? But you're still running the same play. But your linemen have to get comfortable with their spots moving. That's one of the first conversations I had with them, is that they're going to be moving, and you're going to have to get comfortable with that, because when you don't do it a lot, they get really uncomfortable when they start moving, And so we did not hold back in the spring. We were moving probably more than we probably ever have, or probably will, just to teach them that, because that's a skill that people don't really, some don't have, And I think someone told me a stat. I don't know the exact stat. You probably would know better than me. Of pre-snap motion, I think we were like 6% or like last in the country. We didn't move much, so I knew that was something we had to break through that barrier. And I would 100% tell you we've done it enough, because I've been over motioning and shifting. Just I guess that's the word. And then I think it was last week we had a couple of plays that we did motion, and Phil was like, "What's going on? Like you didn't do anything." I was like, "Yeah, we're actually going to do that sometimes, but we have to train these guys, and they've loved it, and they've accepted it, and they're starting to see it more and more, so they're getting comfortable with it."
It seems like that sometimes compensates for the lack of cut blocking that you can't do on the line of scrimmage anymore, because they're calling it even when it's right. And so does this kind of allow for that, just allow your lineman to really get to that vertical and get out in the second level?
Yeah, because you got to get to the second level, right? And you got to take care of the first guys first. And there's very limited times you can cut anymore. It's a huge part of this offense if when we can't get it done right. We can't do it in practice. We were talking about it in our meeting today, saying, in a game I'd like that guy to be cut, but we're not cutting our own players here.
Right.
So now it's more going to be educating them when to do it, and it's not too often anymore. But yes, any hesitation you can get, especially when there's communication between the linebackers and the D-line as things are changing, where he's screaming at the last minute and then he's thinking and the ball snapped, and if we're running off the ball, we got a shot, And so it's been fun. They're starting to see how all the pieces fit together, and it's been fun.
Forgive me if this is a question that I don't know if this is something that you'd even think about, but last year against Big Ten teams at home, their Iowa offense only scored, I think, 9 touchdowns all year. Do you ever think about just being entertainers? We want to come out there and give the home fans a show. We want to give Hawkeye fans something to talk about in the off week.
No.
Okay.
I haven't thought of that. Really. I mean, this is a fun offense to run. I think our guys love running it. It is an aggressive offense. I want them to be aggressive, and we're going to be aggressive, and I think they enjoy that, and obviously if we're successful, the fans will love it, So I guess in the long run, yes, they'll love the fact if we're executing, if our technique's right. The biggest thing with our guys is just them understanding that the new offense is different. There's no question about that. But it still comes down to technique. My job is to try to make their job of executing a little bit easier. If I can get guys leaning, I can hopefully make their jobs a little bit easier. But if their technique isn't right, it still comes down to that. And so if we're doing those things, and we're being aggressive, and we're making them cover every blade of grass. I mean, that's our goal. Is every blade of grass on that field, all the way across, all the way down. We got to make them cover it all and have plays that hit all the different areas. And that's fun to watch.
How much scripting do you want to do? Or what's your philosophy on
opening script?
Yeah, opening script.
Yeah.
How much do you want to do, and what's your philosophy in that script? Are you trying to figure out, hey, I want to see what they're doing
question.
here?
It's a really good question because I've done a bunch. I've done 5 plays, I've done 10, I've done 20, I've done 30.
Wow.
You really just got to figure out what we're good at, I do like scripting. There's one year where I scripted plays in a sequence. And then I'd get off the sequence on third down, to make sure we got a good third down call and get right back into the sequence. So I've done it a bunch of different ways. We'll definitely have an opening script. You see so many teams in the NFL and in college, have a lot of success on that first drive because they've worked on that so many times. I remember when I was the quarterback coach at Western Michigan, we would score in our top 20 plays, we called it. We'd score like 21 points every time. We'd score a ton. And I used to be up in the booth we should just run those again. We literally have scored 21 points in these 20 plays. We should just wrap it back and see.
Until they stop?
Let's roll with it, right? And so there's just so many ways to do it. But we're definitely going to have the beginning of the game scripted. We're going to have to get off. When we get off schedule, we got to get off that script. But it puts the guys at ease, too. And, there's going to be all kinds of adrenaline running, especially early on. So getting them comfortable with what's the first. I'll go through with the quarterback. This is our first third and short. This is our first third and medium. This is the first third and long. It's the first call. When we get to the 25, it's my first call at the 15. Just so he's more comfortable. I think you have a better chance to have success early in a game when they're comfortable with those plays.
Do you like to use some of that, though, to kind of see how they react to? Because you're going to set something up for later?
100%. My job last year was, during game day, I sat right next to the defensive coordinator, and I did offensive personnel. And on Thanksgiving Day, the first drive, the Detroit Lions ran every personnel known to man. He looked at me a couple times they're in what? And I'm I'm pretty sure they got an extra lineman in there. They're in 22T, whatever it was. And they went right down the field. They ran all kinds of stuff. And so a lot of times, you're setting up things for later on in the game.
Yep.
2, you want to see what they're going to do in different personnels. 3 by 1, you want to get up. You want to show everything to see what you're going to get because it does give you more information for later on in the game.
You mentioned to me a couple weeks